to the December 2021 meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed, thank you, to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I am Eric Von Salzen, the chair of the commission, and I ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Richard Vincent.
Thomas Schroeder.
Ann Lucy.
David Herring.
Terry Lurch.
John Taylor.
And also ask the staff to introduce themselves.
Alexandria Rye.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest?
I do. Page 4 of 9. Second, I guess the second to last sentence. Shutters will be stained clear and will be size 2. I suggest we change from be operable to cover the window in a closed position. Need not be operable.
Any objection to the suggested change?
Secondly, on page 6 of 9, paragraph just above E, it says approximately 6 inches. I think that should be 6 feet. Fence as it came to the house there was set forward a
Yes.
tad. I believe it was about 6 feet, not 6 inches.
Does anyone have a contrary recollection? Can we leave that to Alexandria to check the record?
I can check the record on that because now I'm second guessing myself, but I thought it was 6 inches. So we'll look and see, and we'll go back and watch the meeting and make that determination.
That's satisfactory, David?
That's all I have, yes.
Any other comments on the minutes? With those changes, may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. May I now have a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. We are now in the public hearing.
One more administrative thing is the calendar.
Yes, actually, two things.
Okay.
Two things. Thank you, Tom. Going to ask for a motion to approve the 2022 regular meeting calendar.
So
No
moved.
move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? It passes. We also have been provided with copies of the Ethics Policy and Conflicts of Interest Review. I believe this has been provided to all members of the commission, and that as requested, we have all entered our names on the document. I don't think there's anything further that we need to do in that regard. You don't have mine, but we can make sure we pass them over to Shannon before the meeting breaks up. Now may I have a motion to enter the public hearing?
I don't think we ever left it. I think we've approved these in the public meeting, which I don't think is a particular issue.
Well,
I think we entered the meeting, we then approved these, and we're still in the,
We've been in a commission meeting, now we're going to go into the public meeting. It's still-
motion was made, seconded, and passed that we were in the public meeting.
Oh, has it been? Okay, I did that out of order then. All right, we're in a public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in. The commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. First, I'll ask the commissioners if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today, and whether they've had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today.
Richard Vincent visited all the sites, no ex parte communication.
Thomas Schroeder visited the sites, no ex parte.
Eric von Salzen visited all sites, no ex parte communication.
Ann Lucy visited all sites, no ex parte.
David Herring visited all, no communication.
Terry Lurch visited all, no ex parte communication.
John Taylor visited all, no ex parte communications.
Thank you. In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, staff will first present a summary of the application, the staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission's standards for such an application or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and where appropriate, the staff's recommendations for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question staff about the report and testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in staff's testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at that time and identify yourself. I will swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember that the Commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject, but I'm not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question you about your testimony. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to your testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case. Will all staff members who may give evidence in this proceeding please stand, raise your right hand, and state your name for the record?
Alexandria Rye.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all the cases on our docket today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated. All right, our first case is COA 2021-00195 involving 5 McCaskill Road. Is the applicant present? Would you come forward, please? Will you stand by the microphone behind you on the podium there? Just because when you're standing, the other mic won't pick up your voice when you are sworn in, which is what I'm going to do next. Would you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Jeffrey Tyner, Tyner.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to this application shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can now be seated. Thank you. Staff will now present the case and the staff report.
All right, thank you. So we are looking at the property at 5 McCaskill Road East. The current land use is single-family residential. There's no proposed changes. The request that's being brought before you today is the removal of multiple trees for the installation of a brick patio, an outdoor fireplace, and some additional landscaping to be done. Staff comments, the applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The changes appear to be consistent with the district standards. The applicable changes are as follows. Changes to the existing residence. We've got decks and patios, the addition of a deck or patio must not obscure, damage, or destroy the character-defining features, as well as masonry standards you'll see here below. And under site features, we do have some information regarding the landscaping, specifically the removal of trees 12 inches in diameter at breast height or larger that must not unreasonably compromise the existing tree canopy of the historic appearance in the landscaping. This map will show you the adjacent property owners who were notified of the public hearing. And this is a zoomed-in image, aerial image of the property in question. You can see the home there in the center, and it is surrounded by 3 roads on this property. And the red squares are the indicated trees to be removed for the proposed improvements for the following reasons. Some of the trees, they do protrude over the home. There is some sight distance issues when turning in and out of the property on both the on the north entrance as well as the south entrance, and some that'll be in conflict when widening the driveway for better accessibility in and out of the garage. And a couple of the trees they're proposing to remove for corrective drainage, and the other is to allow for the fireplace addition. You will also notice that some trees are indicated with a blue square. The blue squares are in the right-of-way, and the applicant is under the understanding that those cannot be approved here today for removal. That process is through Public Works. So these are some pictures kind of showing you the areas in question. These 2 trees that are in the front of the home, or I'm sorry, in the rear of the home, are protruding over the dwelling. This is at the south entry driveway, which the applicant states prohibits the site distance visibility. This tree here that is directly in front of the garage is one of the trees proposed to be removed for more space for maneuverability. And here in the rear of the yard, you can see where there's a couple trees there in the area where the applicant is proposing to do those improvements for the patio and the fireplace. And this is at the north entrance that they're looking to remove a couple trees for site distance. You can see there's a pink ribbon that ties around it. And these are some of the trees that they're being proposed for removal for some drainage correction. This is an overall landscape plan that was submitted, so though there are some trees being removed, there's significant landscaping being installed. This is the type of brick material that is being proposed for the pavers on the property for that expanded patio area. And at this time, staff would like to submit the following: the staff report presentation, the application, any applicant materials, photos, site plan, and finding of facts.
Thank you. Questions by commissioners?
The question, Alexandria, is it 17 trees all told that we're talking?
The aerial would present that. I would definitely recommend asking the applicant to verify that number specifically, that are within, not outside of the right-of-way, but within the property itself.
I think it's 13 trees that's above 12-inch diameter, and there's some, maybe 2 or 3, like maybe small hollies that's in the way of the fireplace.
Any other questions? Alexandria, aside from the trees, we're talking about installation of a brick patio and outdoor fireplace. You provided a photograph of the bricks that would be used for that purpose, but I don't see anything that actually shows the proposed patio or the proposed fireplace. Is that correct?
Correct. I did not receive any imagery of what the intention would be for that proposed fireplace. Only the pavers and what those are intended to look like.
What is the additional landscaping that's referred to, other than the removal of the trees?
So let me get to that plan. Give me a second here. Let me see if I can try to zoom in. And I would definitely recommend confirming some of these that nothing has changed with the applicant, but you can see that there's some shrubbery. It's mostly foundation plantings that appear to be some of that extended landscaping, as well as landscaping around the proposed improvement area for that patio. I'm not sure if there's a plan for a tree-to-tree removal replacement, but it does look like there are some small trees being proposed that at maturity will provide a smaller canopy.
I know we're going a little bit out of order here, but Mr. Tyner, can you, perhaps referencing this drawing, explain the landscaping proposal?
Yes, so we're actually going to relocate 2 large camellias, and we're going to relocate 2 hollies, and we're actually going to totally redo all the landscaping around the house. We're actually planting 105 new trees and shrubs.
Can you break that down to trees versus shrubs? Out of the 105, how many are trees?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any large species trees. They're all going to be like ornamental, but I don't have that breakdown on me.
Thank you.
Are there any,
Get that question. All right, so on this image here, and I apologize, it's a little bit grainy and hard to read, but this is the index for that landscape. And it has the quantity. So, for example, you got on here at the bottom, let's see here. You have 175 Bermuda sod going in. You've got 3 of these giant arboretum, terribly announcing these, I'm sorry, 7 junipers. So it kind of gives you an indication here of an itemized list of how many of what.
So just the bottom 2 items, W and X, looks like 7 and 3 would be a total of 10. These are not going to replace the mature, I guess they're oak trees, I'm not sure, but pines.
So as the applicant stated, these are not large species trees. These are more smaller trees. And at maturity, typically the smaller canopies run between 10 and 12. If it's ornamental, it could be anywhere between 5 and 10 as far as the canopy.
I count 15 new trees, none of which are very tall.
And there was reference made, I think, to a tree that was to be taken out to improve the sight line. I didn't sense that, other than the ones that are in the right-of-way, which are not our purview. There were a couple very close to the street, which I would agree with you. It isn't clear from the picture that any of the red dots are particularly close to McCaskill Road. Is that, am I misinterpreting the photograph, Alexandria?
That would also be my interpretation as well.
we've gone a little bit out of order here, but does anyone have questions for Alexandria before we turn to Mr. Tyner? Richard?
Correct, these are just what the applicant's proposing to do, not required. Correct.
This is what I anticipate doing in lieu, but he may do half of this, he may do.
Through historic preservation, your approval is not on the exact number and location of what the plantings are for landscaping, it's the overall character that it provides.
Anything further for Alexandria? Okay, Mr. Tyner, you've already given us some additional information. Is there anything more that you would like to add in support of your application?
I think the biggest reason we plan on taking the pine trees to the left of the house, which is in between Highway 5 and the structure, is there's 6 foot of grade change between the road and the structure. It's maybe 120 feet. And there's actually some moisture on that corner of the house. And so that's the main reason we were planning on removing the pines on that side of the house, is to correct the drainage. There'll be about a 12 to 18 inch cut to try to slope it away from the home and where the grass is growing in that landscape plan. And but anyways, that was the main reason for the tree removal on the left side of the house.
And we have the description of the fireplace, but no pictures, no,
I've actually intended to contract with House Masonry to construct the fireplace, and I told him to take a look at, there's a house on the corner of Dundee and Short. I told him to take a look at that fireplace. I would like the same structure.
Since we don't have the opportunity to know what that looks like, would you consider coming back another time so that we can see what it is you propose to do on the fireplace? We'd call that, we would continue this case for another month. Otherwise, for my own personal vote, it would be difficult for me to approve something unseen.
I think the patio is one thing, it's a brick patio, but the fireplace is not the same thing.
If that'd be up to you.
I would regard the fireplace as a structure, and would like to see what it's going to look like before voting on approving it. So I agree with David's concern. If you're willing to have the case continued, that would address my concerns. Yes, Tom?
I've got a couple more of the questions about some of the stuff I've got here that might be useful on the return as well. I would like to get permission.
Please go ahead, yes.
Taking a look at Exhibit A32. And if you could put that up, Alexandria, so we're all looking at it, I'd appreciate it.
You have dimensions on the fireplace by chance?
I sure don't. I told him pretty much to do the same construction, mirror the house on Dundee and Short, on the corner of Dundee.
Understand. Unfortunately, we're not familiar with that property. Okay,
If I can take some pictures next.
okay, yeah, that would have been a good idea. This is all, is it visible from, is the fireplace visible from the road?
No, sir, not from McCaskill. The house will be blocking it.
Might be visible from Route 5.
You may be able to see it. There's still a lot of trees between there still. Even the trees we're asking to remove, there's still a lot of trees there.
Back to what I say. A32, which is the one that's up there right now, shows two trees. The two closest to, I assume that's the road. Okay, and then I go to the one that shows the canopy, that drawing, if we can put that up. I'm trying to figure out where they are on that drawing, because I'm not sure they're identified on that drawing, and yet it appears those are trees that are being taken down.
So
Or am I missing something?
No, you're correct. So the trees that's on A3.2, those two right there, there's a third one that's not marked on the overhead drawing, and it's you'll see it on there as well.
I think those are the blue dots.
That's
That's
the two
what I
blue
thought.
dots. That's correct.
But there's one that's not caught.
Right.
You can see
It's
it
not
through
on
the
the
picture.
right of way, so it wasn't colored. It's actually, it should have been a red dot. It's not on the right of way. But if you, I have a pretty large pickup truck, and if I'm coming down and I turn in, I have to make two turns to turn into the driveway.
And I'm not questioning that part
Yeah.
of it. I'm just trying to figure out where those two trees are, because one of the things we have to look at is the canopy, which you're showing from here, and I can't see where those two trees, I'm confused as to where those two trees are on versus to that video, or to that picture right there, which is the only thing we've got to look at as far as canopy.
Aren't those the blue dots?
I think they're the two left-hand blue dots, but the right-hand blue dot is not indicated on the picture.
But if
And
they're
keep
the
in-
blue dots, then they're not part of this application to us, is that?
Right,
is that
and
what I'm
these,
correct?
I thought, were said to be part of the application to us. That's why I'm confused.
So, and maybe if we can ask on what Tom is saying, if you go back to this picture here, there's a flag tree on the right, flag tree on the left, those are in the right-of-way, out of our purview. You marked them in blue on the previous drawing. But there's a pine tree in the middle there that's on your property that hasn't been marked, that should have been marked in red. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to add that tree somewhere to this thing then, is that right? Okay. That's why I wanted to bring that kind of stuff up, because we can take that the next time around if that's the direction we go. I'm just trying to make sure, one of the standards talks about interrupting the canopy. The canopy would be the view, that view, as to what it is, and that's one of the things that we have to take into consideration. So was trying to make sure that I understood all of the trees that were marked in the previous exhibits were being on this exhibit, so we could make it that. So we probably need to go back and make sure that with those two match, that they're there. We've identified at least one that is not. I don't know whether the rest of them are or are not.
It's in conjunction.
Tom, is that something he could
You have
do?
more, Tom?
No, right now, that's all I have.
In conjunction with this picture, I understand the drainage issue, which is sort of the front 5 or 6 trees to the left of the house. And I understand the ones behind the house, because that's where you want to put the patio. The 3 to the right, is it possible to trim them as opposed to removing them altogether so that the limbs don't overhang the house? But are the trees themselves okay? They looked from the other picture like they're a decent distance from the house.
So the pine tree nearest the garage, I'm asking for removal. On a typical, so it's got a 90-degree turn into my garage. Typically, a parking space is 18 foot, and to do a 90-degree turn, you need at least 10 more feet. So 28 foot's reasonable from the garage to the tree, that distance you would want. I currently have 21 foot. It's just really tight getting in and out of the garage. And I was going to extend the driveway. If you look on the landscape plan, you'll see the blue stone is going to extend farther, and I was going to put some narrower screening and tree shrubs there. But the 2 oaks, they're only 19 foot from the house, and they're pretty large. You can actually see the roots near the foundation already. And I was just, the limbs are currently on the house, and the previous people that were living there were having, rodent problem, I guess, right on that side of the attic. But being 19 foot from the house, the oak tree, with the root system and the limbs, that's the reason I was requesting those 2.
Understand, thank you.
Tom, could your issue be addressed by adding a red dot now? Or, Alexandria, it's done? Okay.
I guess my follow-on question, are all of the rest of the trees that are in there actually in there?
They are.
Yeah.
I apologize.
That's
for
the
that.
only one that's not.
I have a few tree questions as well. I'm happy to have you come back with answers to some of these. I was out this afternoon, just before the meeting, walked all the way around the house, looked at all the trees. Alexandria, could you bring up the first of those 2 photographs? This one's taken from across the street. I think that's, across the street, looking at the single blue dot is the closest tree on the left of the drive entrance there. And from this view, you can get some sense of the height of the trees and the amount of canopy that they produce. And the second image, Alexandria, this one looks further into the site, and you can see several of the trees to the left side of the house, in particular the 2 that are sort of in front of the house there, and how much canopy those trees have as well. Regarding the 3 trees on the right side of the house, the center of those 3 red dots looks to me like it's got limbs already touching your house. The other 2, the one by the driveway makes sense to provide access to the garage. The other one, on the other hand, looks to me to be far enough away with some pruning, understanding you have a root issue as well. But that tree looks to be clear of the house. The trees to the back left corner of the house, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 of them there. One of them looks to be in the middle of your fireplace. The other 3, hard to say, because they don't show up on your fireplace drawing where those trees are. if it would be possible when you come back to locate where those trees are on your landscape plan, showing the patio and the fireplace, that'll help us understand how they might encroach. The other 4 or so trees that have the drainage issue, I would only ask that you look for some other solution that doesn't take out a major piece of the canopy toward Route 5.
The trees that's on that left side of the house, the pine tree is 4 foot from the structure. One of them is 6 foot from the structure. Another one is 4 foot from the house. And one of them is 11 foot from the house.
They're major trees, big trees.
I'm just scared my gutters are on the left front of the house as well. And there's, with the significant grade change, if I were to try to dig a swale or anything to try to get the water away from that side of the house, I would be sort of scared if I damage the root system or.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Tyner?
Or all of those red dots on there are 12-inch or better trees?
I think there's some in the back that's like on the fireplace plan, on the landscape plan. There's a couple hollies and a dogwood maybe that's on there, and those aren't 12 inches.
And our canopy requirement, those are the only ones we take into are the 12-inch or better at breast height. So if they're smaller than that, they're outside of our purview.
Right.
See that holly, there's only one pine tree that's in the back that's in the way of the fireplace, and that's to the left. It's like 1 foot from the edge of the brick paver. And I've got about a 10-inch cut there to install the base and the brick paver. And it's only 1 foot from the pine tree. That's the reason. But the dogwood and the hollies, they're less than 12 inches. And they're marked in red as well.
Those are out of our purview.
So maybe if he's coming back anyway, we just eliminate those from he may need to take them out, but he doesn't need to ask us.
Right. That's my point to the story, is if we could make sure the red dots that we're looking on here, which is what I would look at as far as interruption of canopy, are the only dots that are on here. If they're less than 12 inches at breast height, if you could remove those so that we understand the difference in thing. Because our standard says we can only take into consideration those trees and the canopy if they're 12 inches or larger.
Well, there's significant cost involved with 2 mobilizations of a contractor coming in, to remove some and then.
No,
The
just
littler ones you can
just the
remove,
blue
and they're
ink.
not our problem.
I got you.
Take
That's
the
my
blue ink
point.
off.
I got you.
Okay, you can do it all at the same time. I don't care how you do it, but what I need to know is
From the
which ones are
plan.
12 inches and bigger, because those are the ones that were more than likely to interrupt the canopy. The shorter trees are not an issue with that. Does that make sense to you?
But coming back means you can't start any work, right?
Right, yeah, that's.
Okay.
Can staff interject for just a moment, if you guys don't mind? I'm sorry you can't see me. But, so on the landscape plan, I just wanted to note that the trees are indicated on here. The oak and pine and dogwood are going to be the ones that you're looking at. Granted, they don't indicate the difference between 12-inch in diameter versus less than 12-inch in diameter, but I just wanted to point that out, that they're on there as well, in case you wanted to cross-reference. Also,
Those are all the small ones, right?
these are actually the bigger, the ones that I have circled on here.
Oh,
They're
one of
not
them- One of
the,
them says holly. Is that one of the, because when I went out, the holly looked easily under 12
I
inches.
think the 4 up by the fireplace probably don't need to come before us. I suspect those are less than 12 inches, but I'm not sure.
Based
So-
on the size of the red dot, I would agree with you, but I need to understand. I'm not sure the red dots are directly proportional to the size of the tree, is my point.
right, and that wasn't, my point was not to determine the size. I just wanted you all to know that if you wanted to cross-reference the number on the aerial, there is a landscape plan that was provided to help you to determine where those trees are located, not necessarily the size.
Basically, the ones below what says deck, they all look like they're the major ones, and there are, I think, 9 of them, if I count correctly. And the 4 or 5 up by the fireplace but not for us to interpret, just maybe better for clarification next time.
Sure. And
I
then,
guess, Alexander, before we go past this, to make sure our applicant has clear direction, if I'm looking at the circles you just made, to the left of the patio,
Which drawing are you looking at? So I can,
that one right there,
okay.
there's a red circle around the word dogwood, right? Does that say dogwood? Hard to see.
it does say dogwood.
So if it's a dogwood, that's not one of the major pines he's talking about removing, if I understand the applicant.
Okay.
And to the, above that, I can't read that.
It's pine.
That says pine?
Yeah, I just circled the X's on here so you can understand that that X and that label are part of the trees that he was referencing in his application. I'm not making that determination as to size.
Okay. We need some help.
Yeah.
So that's, my landscape, he put an X on those trees, you know. There's only one in the rear with the patio that's larger than 12 inches. I'm asking to set pine that's right above that dogwood, and it's going to be 1 foot from the edge of the brick paver.
I hear you. Minor adjustment to the design to embrace the canopy would be really cool.
The record has to know the right answer. That's
So-
the point.
Any,
Is it on the record right now, though? Do we have all we need on the record or not?
not
We
necessarily.
don't?
We're going to continue
We
the
don't?
case. That'll give us an opportunity to get some more information.
But it looks like maybe we have a picture of a fireplace here.
Because you happen to have such excellent taste. That house you're referring to belongs to one of our members here.
You're welcome to come take a photo anytime.
But this is that image of where the applicant, the address the applicant referenced as far as wanting his fireplace to identically resemble this one. And those measurements do align in what is shown on the landscape plan with what you see here. Granted, it's not the whole thing side to side, but you can get an idea of what the applicant was referencing in regard to how it would look. We just so happen to be able to get this image for you fairly quickly.
So, and not to, we're talking amongst ourselves, it sounds like there's just a few things more of like specificity and clarity for the commissioners. So if it's not too egregious of an inconvenience to bring you back, that sounds like you'll have what you need as far as pictures and whatnot to come back. And it sounds like the tree issue and just details the key here. So,
Are there any further questions of Mr. Tyner at this point? And we'll ask for any comments from the public.
Well, I mean, can we allow further marking now or not?
Well, if we're going to have a motion to continue the case, we would then specify what we would expect him to bring back.
But it can't be done now. No, that's,
someone could make that motion.
We haven't completed the record yet.
No, I think we have to ask for public comment, if any,
Correct,
first, yes.
that's correct. So if the commissioners have no further questions at this time of Mr. Tyner, I will ask if there's any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application. If so, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. Having no response, that concludes the evidentiary hearing at this point, and the commissioners may deliberate. And just to sort of move things along, are we inclined to decide this case at this point or to continue it until next month for specific additional information?
It would be my position that we need more data on the trees, although the fireplace data is pretty well covered at this point. It's magnificent.
Is there a problem if coming back?
There's not a problem. Of course, I'd like to, you know, get started as soon as I could. We're about to finish with our inside renovations, and we're hoping to move in, you know, the end of January. And it'd be a lot easier to do the construction while we're not in the house, you know, for all the landscape, you know, and tree removal.
Could we consider approval of the tree removals? Would that help you?
that's the murky issue right now.
That's the hangup for me, it's the trees, not the
Well, I
fireplace.
didn't ask you. I'm asking, you know, would that be possible?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure, what are you proposing, Terry?
My question was to assist this gentleman in his application and the comments that he just made. he would like to get this project started. And I would consider, the point I was making is, could we, as a commission, approve the removal of the trees that he has specified to get this project on the way? Coming back at another time with the appropriate documentation for the fireplace.
I thought we had the fireplace now on the record, and it's the trees that's the issue,
I
right?
would ask the other question, could we
Well, we don't
approve?
have the fireplace on the record. That wasn't it.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Let's just clarify this. Is the image that's now on the screen the fireplace you were referring to in your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, so the fireplace then is that fireplace, is that correct? Looks, gonna look just like that thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yours would look like the fireplace to the left, or would it include the structure to the right?
So, from firebox to firebox, I think Ken House said it appeared to be 14-foot wide, so everything from firebox to firebox would be constructed, just like that.
including the piece on the right side.
No, just the fireplace, from firebox to firebox.
I would ask the opposite question to Terry's. Could we approve the construction of the patio and the fireplace, which is, I think, the muddy and dirty part, and have the applicant come back on trees, because you can have moved in and still be taking the trees out then?
I would also note, if I can, just to maybe potentially propose a compromise in that if he were to have to come back with a continuation, maybe prior to the next meeting, we could set a time, maybe 2 weeks, right after the holidays, that we could review that, so that way we don't delay it.
Are you able to go off for 5 or 10 minutes and just give us the information we need on the trees? I mean, is
Well,
it,
I'm not sure you can do that without looking at them. I guess that's the,
I don't have any issue with the trees. I mean, there's tons of trees on that property. I take the McCaskill Road off Highway 5 on the way home. Even though the 3 are out of our purview, I understand people drive a lot faster than 25 miles an hour down that road, and you catch them in the dark, you catch lights at different angles, it's a cluster. But I also know we are impacting the canopy, but there's sufficient canopy left. There's valid reasons as far as drainage, there's valid reasons as far as moving water on that property, adding things to the property. I mean, sounds like Terry may be on the same page, but I'm fine if we can get sort of dimensional clarity on the fireplace and, just clarify this correctly, because we've got a fire and then we've got 2 wood storage boxes on the side. It sounds like we could have everything on record as far as dimensions, scale to appease most of it. Trees are not an issue for me.
Trees are an issue for me, and although I appreciate what we've learned so far in this hearing, I haven't had an opportunity to absorb it to my own satisfaction. That's just one man's opinion. I gather there are others who may also have concerns about that.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's not that I think ultimately we won't approve the trees, but I'm not sure which trees we're approving and which ones we aren't. And we've got a proposal that includes some that don't need our approval. It's missing a tree that does need our approval. I would just rather have clarity on what the trees are so we know what we've approved versus the fireplace, which I think I know what I'm approving, and that's my opinion.
I agree, John, but if he could go off for 5 or 10 minutes and just clarify.
Well, for me, I'm not sure, I remember counting up the number of trees that have red dots on them, but I think there are 3 trees in the front left that could be saved, possibly 2 or 3 in the back around where the fireplace is going, and maybe 1 on the right side. That's a big piece of the canopy. You'd still let him get past a lot of the problems he has, and still preserve maybe half of the canopy that he was going to remove. So I'm hoping we get some feedback about those issues before.
David, even if that were the case, I don't know how we would specify which ones we were approving and not here.
Well, I think we all walked the property or we saw it, but they were abandoned. I mean, maybe they're not documented as well here as some commissioners would like, but they were very evident there on the ground.
And that's the problem. The record has to stand on itself, not necessarily what is or isn't out there. The record has to stand as a clear document on its own. And just as to make the motion an example of why that's critical, the 2 things it says, section 5, 6, 7, site features 1 and 4 are listed here, and both of those are musts, so we have to determine whether they must be, which trees must be versus the other, just to make a clear motion to it. Does that make sense, what I was saying? I'm not sure it did.
I think we would have a very difficult time structuring a motion on the basis of the record that we have right now. And I would have a hard time making a decision because until we've had this discussion, I really didn't have an understanding of what was being proposed to be taken out other than a bunch of dots. Now, I think I have a better understanding, but I don't by any means know that I have a complete understanding.
Mr. Tyner, maybe a good suggestion as you come back, it looks like where we're going, you might want to enumerate how many 12-inch trees you have on the property, as well as the ones you want to take out, so that we can understand better how the canopy is being displaced. Does that sound right?
Would someone like to make a motion?
But before we do that, are we allowed, could we approve the fireplace and patio, but specifically exclude any mention of trees?
Without making him pay another fee and start over again.
I
They can pay another fee.
I'm not worried about the
Because
fee.
the application is what it is, and I think busting it up is not our decision.
We approve things with conditions. One condition would be that no trees be touched.
So you can't approve it separately, dissecting it in that manner, but you can, for example, indicate that the trees will be further reviewed in a week or, something of that nature.
I was just attempting to help the applicant with his construction pre-moving in, but if we can't do it, then
Yeah, it's not ours to break,
that's fine.
Why not?
because we don't get that decision, he does. If he wants to remove the trees from the application, he can. We can't direct him to remove trees, or to add trees, or to do anything with the application. That isn't our decision to make.
Can he make that comment right now? if
He
wanted?
can, but
I
again,
would
we go back
preface-
then to the money again.
Yeah, I would preface that if he were to remove the tree request from his current application, then he would have to resubmit an application by the next deadline to be heard at the next hearing as a separate application with a separate application fee.
I view that as the applicant's choice. I have no opinion on the fees. That's not for us to debate.
Great, but he needs to know what Alexander just said.
Would that be helpful if we found a way to approve just the patio and the fireplace, but nothing having to do with the trees, and you had to therefore come back with a separate application? Would you want to do that, or would you not want to do that? Would you rather bring the whole thing back? We'll defer this and have you come back in
Deferring
January,
doesn't incur a new fee.
not incur a fee at all?
Now, I'd figured, my contractor, I've got a pine tree that's right next to the, brick patio. I mean, it's almost touching.
No, you're right.
But I've had those trees marked for a month now with pink ribbon, and I only missed that one on that application. Yeah.
And I'm not saying you've done anything wrong.
No.
I'm just saying our document has to back up our decision. And if it's not in the document, then we can't make the decision other than what's on the document. We get
Exactly,
to-
what exactly is it you need to be, so that it's super clear?
12-inch trees that are coming down so that I can evaluate which tree, the impact on the canopy. I
So
don't know
it's-
how else to
Tom,
evaluate
there's
the
a
impact.
picture
All of these,
There's a
17.
picture of every tree that's coming down.
Well, we
That's
don't
part
know
of our
what-
documentation.
The problem is.
that's
So
not
what
true.
else do you need?
That's not true,
Some of
Terry.
the trees that are.
What?
There isn't a picture of every tree. That's part of the problem.
We know all the trees that he wants to take down, but I don't think everybody is.
There's a
prepared to
plan
agree
right here
to
with
what
every
those all
tree
coming
except
down.
that one. Even the ones that's smaller than 12 inches are on.
Let me ask you, is it possible for you to show specifically where on that plan is this one tree that's the particular headache? Can you show us where that is?
It's right here.
Come on up.
the driveway.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a tree back here. It's that one?
And David, there's
So
a picture
let me
that,
offer another.
there's a
another-
picture that
picture of
shows the
12
tree
trees.
banded, but it's not marked on that.
David?
Another,
Actually, a picture of
another
12
option
trees.
would be for you to remove all but that one tree. And let us make a motion based on the fireplace and that one tree. If you wanted to do more trees later, you'd have to come back and pay another fee. That would be something we might consider.
I would also just interject again. If you all are feeling like you would like to continue this, you can continue this as early as tomorrow without, and we can stay within the parameters of legally continuing it so that he can bring back a document per se, maybe the landscape plan, highlighting the ones that are 12 inches or more at breast height.
I'm up for that.
But Alexander, I think you're proposing then that at least four of us then have to meet to consider that and conceivably approve it.
That would be correct.
And if you have only four, all four have to vote affirmatively.
Yes.
The determination would be, and you could even continue it to Tuesday.
Why can't he just do it now?
He
Can
could.
you do it?
You
So-
could, similarly to
This
the
is taking
instance.
like an hour, and we've got two more, so he could go back and, can you do that? I mean, would that be good enough for everybody here?
Let me be clear that we need to know where the trees are, not just the aerial photograph with some red dots. But if the reason for removing a tree is because it conflicts with the fireplace, where is it relative to the fireplace?
That's
don't
one
have
that's
that.
marked. That's
It's
one
1
that's,
foot.
that's,
The one tree that's in conflict with the fireplace is 1 foot from the proposed fireplace. And I've got it marked on here.
the pine right above the dogwood when you were looking at the picture when they were circled.
I guess I could find my way clear to allow the removal of that one tree and even the one that's not marked, the one and only one you missed, and the fireplace. I could go for that right now.
And I have asked the Village of Pinehurst for approval on the ones in the right-of-way, and they have granted me approval for those three.
They did?
Dare you to prove it all right now? Probably.
Well, let's try to move this along. Would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve, let me find the right thing I'm supposed to read here. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness, COA-2021-00195, and find the proposed major work at 5 McCaskill Road is consistent with the Historic District standards and congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. The conditions exclude the removal of all but two trees. One is the pine tree, how to describe this, on the right-hand curb cut that was not marked. Doing my best. The other is the one about a foot to the left of the fireplace when viewed from the street.
Just for clarification, so your motion would allow the removal of those two trees and none of the other trees that are proposed?
Yes, that's right, probably get it backwards.
And the construction of the patio and the fireplace.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right, discussion.
I have a question for the applicant. Is that acceptable to you?
Well, I've marked all the 12-inch trees now on the plan, so they're marked, the 12-inch
But
trees.
before we go to that, if we were to approve the motion that's been made so that you could go ahead, get the construction going and take 2 trees down, but you'd have to come back on all the other trees, is that something you'd like to do?
Well, I would like to do it. However, it would cost me more to do that than do another $500 application fee, to be honest.
You've got to bring the tree by out.
Tree guy
again,
back out
right.
there.
That's what I wanted to hear from you before we,
In that case, I withdraw my motion.
All right, is there another motion?
are we willing to entertain as a committee the hand-drawn version of what's to be taken out and what is not?
Sorry, I didn't follow.
I believe the applicant now has a hand-drawn version indicating all the trees that he proposes to take out. Are we willing to entertain that and enter that into the record and perhaps have a motion based on that?
I would be willing to consider that a condition too. One, that it gets entered into the record, and two, gets marked as the correct exhibit, so we know what the exhibit to refer to is.
Agree?
But it would mean that all 7 of us have to look at it and understand it.
Yes.
We get the little one.
Just so I understand, the red X's that you've drawn, those are the ones that you want to take out.
Right, 12 inches or larger.
That includes the one that wasn't marked on the aerial, that's one down here on the inside of the driveway. Right, that's the one that was missed, that we saw in the picture, but was missed in the overhead there. So the pine here, which is to clear the garage, the 2 oaks back there. This is the one he has to take out in order, because that's the one that's a foot from the patio.
You gentlemen can sit over there and talk about that till you're blue in the face. I have no idea what you're talking about, and nor am I willing, it needs to come around and be explained so that we understand it.
Take it over to him.
So I'll note that the plan that I just put in front of you has a red highlighted indicator of the trees at breast height that are 12 inches or more in diameter that the applicant is proposing to remove in his application.
So I've got 2 documents here. I have a smaller document and a larger document. Are you submitting both of those as, or are they the same thing, or what, how am I to?
Same thing.
They're the same thing. So I would propose then that we get rid of this just so we don't complicate things for right now in our discussion and use just the large one. Is that fair? Okay. So your application purports to remove everything that's marked, well, I would assume here on an X, except for I'm not sure what the circle is in the back.
That's correct. Circle on the back is just that pine I circled.
Okay, so it's just the one pine tree that's in there. Okay. I'm looking at his document here, and that's what I want to understand.
So that's your application, is that correct? So everything that's a red X in here is what you want to remove, plus the one pine that's in that circle in the back. Is that correct? Okay. And that's exhibit what? What would be the next exhibit number? A7? May I mark it A7? Or I marked on your drawing exhibit A7 so that we can identify correctly.
This is A2, which has now been supplemented with some of the red marks, and just so that I know what I'm voting on.
I think I should point out that the document that you're now presenting is not the same number of trees that are on this aerial. If that's the one that's correct, then we ought to remove this from your application.
That's his decision.
Good idea.
So are there any other exhibits that you desire to change, modify, or anything else? Remove? Add? Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I understand everything that I'm looking at. That's what I'm... And you understand we're going to keep this if this goes through? Okay. What we're voting on, yes. And the record shows on what it is.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay?
Find a piece of paper again. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve, with conditions, a certificate of appropriateness, COA-2021-00195, and find the proposed major work at 5 McCaskill Road is consistent with historic district standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, the findings of fact, and the following. On the newly produced A7 landscape plan, to the left of the house, where there is a drainage issue, there are 4 enumerated trees highlighted in yellow that I would disallow removal of, allow removal of. Plan south of that, there are 3 enumerated trees in red X's, only 2 of which have yellow on them. So I'm presuming that only the 2 that have yellow on them are 12 inches or bigger. If that is correct, then those 2 must remain. They are outside the area where you're having a drainage issue, and
I
they're
had
far
just
from the house.
thought I asked the question, maybe tell me if I'm unclear, that all the red X's were 12 inches and above and were the trees that were being requested to remove. Is that not true?
Well, maybe I misunderstood. The highlighted ones are 12 inches or?
The
It's
red
his
highlighted trees.
exhibit, I need to know from him what, if it's a red X, you want to remove it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
That was-
Are all of the red X's 12 inches or larger at breast height?
All right, in that case, the 3 trees with red X's to the front left of the house cannot be removed.
Pardon?
Cannot be removed.
That's part of your motion.
Yes, I'm still in the conditions part. There is 1 pine tree restricting access to the garage. That one can be removed. There are 2 that encroach on the house, the smaller of which can be removed, the large one cannot. Only 1 tree near the fireplace can be removed.
Is that you completed your motion?
Yes, I have.
Is there a second?
Let me understand the motion. He's indicated all the trees he wants to take out with X's. You are excluding some of them.
Yes.
So the exhibit that we have is not necessarily clear about that. Your motion would make it clear relative to that exhibit.
Yes, hopefully.
I'm not sure it makes the record clear, because he's testified that he wants to remove all of the red X's And we're saying we're not going to allow him to move some of the red X's.
But he's
That's right.
described where
Yep.
the ones are that are not to be removed under his motion.
Right.
Need a second, right?
So is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion?
Can you list the ones you're excluding?
Yes.
Instead of going bit by bit, which ones are you not allowing to be cut down?
The 3 red X's front left of the house. The planned northernmost red X to the right of the HVAC units. And all of the pines save one near the fireplace. It so happens, after having visited the site, I know there are many back here bigger than 12 that are not shown on this plan.
He also
There
hasn't
are a lot of
indicated
trees
them.
not shown on this.
He hasn't indicated the desire to take them out either.
Not on this plan, but on his previous application, which I believe we removed the aerial photograph. And in that case, the one that is now illustrated next to the fireplace
The only,
must remain.
the only piece of paper I pulled out, there were none of his previous exhibits that were pulled, only the duplicate of that. So we have every exhibit that's in there still remains in that package.
In that case, our application is self-contradictory.
And we got a problem we got to resolve.
Right. So I'm suggesting that we remove this exhibit and rely solely on this one.
But that's his exhibit, we can't remove it.
No,
But,
he's made a.
but guys, we don't know what that exhibit is.
Just a minute, please.
We've already determined that that exhibit isn't
Chair,
sufficient.
excuse me, Terry, the chair is going to make a ruling here. I don't care, we don't have to remove an exhibit. It's part of the application. David has made a motion with specific reference to specific trees indicated on a specific document. We have all seen that document. I believe that it is clear what trees could be removed and what trees could not be removed based on David's motion. So we don't have to worry about taking out exhibits. We just have to worry about whether we want to favor or oppose the motion that David has made and that Ann has seconded. If we don't pass it, then we have to do something else. So is there further discussion of David's motion? Otherwise, I'll poll the commissioners. Are we ready for that? Okay.
Ask the applicant a question.
You may go ahead.
Can you live with that?
So I think David said the 3 trees in the very front of the house, he wants us to stay.
Yeah.
Make sure you.
That's again, hold on. I'm not going to sit here, and that is ex parte communications because none of the rest of us can hear your discussion or understand that discussion. Excuse me, I'm not at all upset with you. Because it's,
These 3, can everybody see?
Yes.
These 3 are staying, according to my motion. One of these is staying, according to my motion. This one pine tree can go. Clear as I can make it.
My question is, on those 3 that's at the front, that was one of the major drainage issues because the farthest tree from the house is 30 foot from the house. And it's 1 foot above the vent in my crawl space. That was the point of regrading that area, sloping it away from the house. Oh, so, the tree that's 30 foot, the farthest away from the house, was a little over 1 foot from the vent in my crawl space, where the tree enters the ground, and we were going to slope.
Let me withdraw my motion and speak to the applicant again, if I may. I'm doing my best to find some trees to keep, because our standards require us to do so. It would be easy to say, no, you can't take any of them down, because they materially affect the canopy. Instead of that, I'm trying to find some trees to save. So I'm trying to find the trees that are least difficult for you to work around. If you can help me do that, great.
Did you withdraw
I'm-
your motion?
Yes, I've already withdrawn the motion.
So there's no motion on the floor?
There's no
You
motion
want
on
to
that.
make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. May not succeed, but I will make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve Certificate of Appropriateness 2021-00195. With the condition that only the trees that have been indicated on Exhibit A7 are permitted to be removed.
Keep going.
Beg your pardon. Sorry. That the commission find the proposed major work at 5 McCaskill Road is consistent with historic district standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, including the new Exhibit A7, and the findings of fact.
Second.
How does that differ from what David moved?
David was excluding trees. I'm proposing to take out all of the trees that have been indicated on this with the red X,
I see, okay.
which is slightly different than some of the other things, but that is the document we have in front of us. I think it's clear what it is and is not, and people may not approve it. I would feel that the impact on the overall canopy of the property is acceptable, in my view.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none. The motion has been made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Lertz. Discussion is concluded. I'll poll the commissioners. Richard?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Eric? Yes?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes?
You got it.
The motion passes. Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
Nice job, John.
Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
All right.
Chair, would you mind just a quick restroom break?
We'll take a 10-minute break. All right, back on the record. Our next case is COA 2021-00203 involving 220 Saville Row. Is the applicant present? Would you gentlemen come forward? Each state your name for the record and spell your last name.
Miles David Larson, Larsen.
Kevin Bartlett, Bartlett.
Would you each raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. And Alexandria, you
Yeah. All right.
case?
So this application is for 220 Seville Row. This is a single-family residence being proposed. It is new construction, and the zoning is R30. The request is for the new dwelling, residential dwelling, to be at 220, and the applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The proposal appears to be consistent with the district standards. These are the following standards that apply to new construction. You have your general standards, windows and doors, accessory features and structures, that would be referring to the patio and fire pit, building material, driveway, landscaping. This is a map that shows the neighboring residents that were notified of the public hearing. This is the survey that was submitted showing the existing conditions and the proposed site plan. I'm going to zoom in on that, and I also, please note, I turned the orientation so you can see the difference between what is existing in the survey as well as the proposed plantings for the structure. And this is the overall footprint of that structure with the garage being in the rear. This is the elevation, the front, your rear elevation. This is the south elevation and the west elevation. These are the materials that the applicant is proposing. You can see that they are mostly neutral, as well as the black roof. Again, these are more materials, including the windows, the French doors, the garage door, and the fire pit being proposed. And at this time, staff would like to submit the following for record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's materials, photo site plan, and finding of fact.
Without objection, the stated materials will be admitted into the record. Questions for Alexandria? All right, hearing none, what would you gentlemen like to say in further support of your application?
Well, I guess first, thank you for serving the Village of Pinehurst and what you guys do each and every day to review these projects and to make sure that it fits with the Historic Preservation Commission standards. Myself and my wife Heather, back there, my son Maston, we are not first-time home buyers here in Pinehurst. We've lived here for the last 10 years. We built another house back in 2011 over off Midland on Glen Meadow Court. So again, we've been longtime residents. Opportunity presented itself where the market put us in a position where we could not sell the home that we had over on Midland. We immediately purchased this lot, which happened to be a lot that 10 years ago when we were looking to build in Pinehurst, we looked at this very lot. Unfortunately, at that time, there were no homes back there, and we had a young family. I have a 12-year-old as well who's not here tonight, but we didn't want to make a commitment to Linden Close because we just didn't want to be back there by ourselves. So we were pleasantly surprised that fast forward 10 years, we sell our house, and the same lot is available. So we've worked very hard with Andy Shearer, as well as Kevin Bartlett, who will be constructing the home. to go through the due diligence, to make sure that we built the house that is not going to be sold in the next 10 years. This will be the house that we hopefully will one day retire in and stay here in Pinehurst. And we look forward to the opportunity to present and answer any questions that you may have about this project. So, Kevin, do you have anything?
Good job.
Thank you. Questions for the applicants?
You. Let's look at Exhibit A2. Do you happen to have a count of trees coming down?
Counting 34.
Well, our counts agree.
I'm glad I can count.
Only 20 trees, of the 20 remaining trees, if my count is right, only 4 are in the front yard. I guess I was hoping you would say, oh, that's a mistake. So 34 trees coming down, 20 remaining, of which only 4 are in the front yard.
I'd like to point out that the open space in the existing homes, you know, they also have more green space with grass and, you know, not as many trees in the front.
And I think my 8-year-old would contest that playing soccer is important to him, and to have that green space in the front of the house is a pretty important aspect of it, which is why Maston is on a travel soccer team and wants to make sure that we have a goalie net out there from time to time so he can kick the ball around with his dad and his brother. So
The trees that are outside what I think is the limits of disturbance that are apparently coming down are way away from the house in the back. Is there a reason you're removing those trees?
are we talking in the footprint?
Inside the property line, outside what I think is the limits of clearing and grading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 trees coming down.
Okay. Again, this will be, well, there will be a second phase of this project. We are going to have a pool in the backyard. We just are not going to do it at this time. But the plan is that eventually, hopefully in the next couple of years, that the backyard will have a pool, and those trees will eventually have to be removed in order to facilitate that process.
Okay, next question. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
On the very last page of your application, which is the one with all the colored photos,
Yes, sir.
it looks to me like you're wanting to paint the brick
Yes, sir.
solid color.
Solid color.
And then at the bottom left corner, there's a thing called a brick fire pit. Looks to me like concrete block.
I think you're correct.
Lastly, the example window there, the second row up on the right,
Yes, sir.
you're actually going to have an arch top, not that one,
Well, the door.
the door.
That is correct. That, matter of fact, the first house, as you pull into the development on the right-hand side, it has that arched door. It's going to be the same exact door.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I am not an architect, so I apologize if this is a silly question, but on the north view, which is Exhibit A 3.5, it looks like there are 2 windows in the main house up on the second floor. And as I look at the east, south, and west views, I don't see any other windows like that. Is that, am I understanding the document correctly, or are there other windows planned for that?
Normal windows you're referring to.
Yeah.
As per plan. The dormer windows?
Yes.
Yes.
Speak in the microphone, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're referring to the dormer
Yes.
windows?
I see 2 on the north-facing
Go ahead.
side, and I don't see any on any of the other sides, the major sides.
No, we're just putting them on the front elevation to break up the roof line. It's
Okay. I bet so there'll be no
for
windows
the
on.
aesthetics, yeah.
Okay. So there'd be no windows, there's no room with a window looking out on the backyard on the south view.
That is correct, sir.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? All right, hearing none. As I said earlier, if there's any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to this application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. See no volunteers. Therefore, if there are no more questions for the applicants, that closes the evidentiary record, and the commission will deliberate. Thoughts?
Well, I'm sorry.
Apparently, I'm the tree guy tonight. 34 coming down, 20 remaining. I hear the explanations, which makes sense. I hate to see the trees way in the back come down. Maybe that's something we could readdress when the swimming pool gets submitted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm allowed to ask the applicant
I'm-
if that,
Oh, sorry.
David, I would say that if the location, I've always struggled with houses in this particular development. I wonder why it's in the historic district at all, but it is, and so we have to deal with that. If this were in Old Town, if this were in what I consider to be the historic part of the historic district, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think in view of the other houses that are there, what the, can't use the word neighborhood, but neighboring houses look like, I have less concern, particularly hearing that is the intent in the not too distant future to put in a pool.
I agree. I have a couple other thoughts, in particular the concrete block for the fireplace. This one's a little harder to get around since section 7C.3.c says concrete block is not allowed. Brick could be cool.
Do it the same brick as the house.
There you go.
Just don't have a picture of that brick.
Cool. Then the last one.
I consider that that is an amendment to the application at this point.
Brick instead of concrete block.
Let the record show.
No
that
issues.
The application has been amended.
Lastly is painted brick, also not allowed.
I think it's not allowed on renovations. It's not barred in new construction.
Don't know.
Alexandria or Alex?
So going back to what the ordinance, or I'm sorry, what the standards state. Let's see here. Must be congruous, not permitted in residential materials. So it says that it is not permitted, however, similarly to previous applications that you've reviewed, with painted brick or partially painted brick proposed, that is something that you guys can make the decision on.
Yeah, I think each case stands on its own, and for example, on some previously approved cases, it was a renovation of an existing house where finding a matching brick was nearly impossible, so painting it made some sense. This is a brand-new house, brand-new brick. Not sure that,
I might remind you that at 315 Nottingham was proposed to have painted brick.
like I say, each submission stands on its own.
Yeah, so are you asking me?
No, sir.
Okay.
But I don't see here that painted brick is not permitted. Am I missing that?
I don't see that.
Going to ask the same question. I don't see anywhere on that
Not in this
screen.
section, but I think it is.
Okay, well, find out here in a second. But don't say it there.
I stand corrected. It's not there. It's existing houses.
Right.
So it's not in the standards, is that correct? My
I
understanding?
can't find it,
So painted brick is acceptable for new construction.
apparently.
Don't existing
Alexander's
standards,
still looking,
aren't they
maybe she spied
incorporated?
something that we ain't seen.
Oh,
Under general standards, it says, covering wall material including wooden siding, wooden shingles, stucco, brick, and stonework with coatings or materials such as vinyl or aluminum siding is not appropriate. It doesn't say paint. That's 5A, which is actually, yeah, that's commercial structures anyway, so. I think I'm wrong. Hard as that is to admit.
Well, it's a first.
Not being wrong, just the admission.
There you go.
we did deal with this at another time, didn't we? Am I mistaken? It seems like.
We dealt with it in a renovation
Yeah.
context, but not, I think last month. But I don't believe, but because of that, I did look through the standards on this case, and I didn't see anything that bars painted brick on new construction.
While they're looking that up, aren't the existing standards applicable to new construction also?
Not necessarily. I mean, they have two separate sections. And I could certainly
I
see,
thought somewhere there was something.
Something we might
Yeah,
want to,
review of section 3 changes to existing residences may provide additional guidance when designing the proposed project.
guidance, right.
So,
To confirm, new construction, there is not a must not. So in a new construction, that is for the existing structures that I also remember, David, that it is a standard that you cannot paint them. But under new construction, it does just reference back to also section N under, and that's going to be the color palette. So it needs to be paint or stain colors of exterior walls, architectural elements or details, decks, porches, must all be compatible with architectural character, structure, and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District.
it begets the question, what are you going to paint it?
Well, actually,
Is
I
the-
have a similar question about all the colors.
The color is specified, and I'm going to go out on a limb with our 150 approved colors of white, that it's a, Dove white is one of the 150.
White dove, I think, is what this is.
It does, white dove, sir.
I have only one more question.
Yes, sir.
The muntins in the windows, are they snap-in or no?
Between the plates, or how are they put in?
I ask because snap-in isn't allowed, but other types are. Where did I see that? There are, you're saying there are no muntins?
Yeah, I mean,
So, perfect. There aren't any.
just for the record,
I was just going off of your materials list in the back that shows a window with them on it. Yeah, so
sounds like he cut and paste photos.
that's fine.
I mean, I'm looking on the elevation page of the actual building plan.
and just for the record, the square footage, since he's the tree person, I'm the scale person.
The house?
It's going to be just shy of 4,000.
I think 4584, does that sound right?
Be over 4,000.
Oh, I
They-
thought, I saw on.
One
the
floor, about
drawings.
3,500 square feet. The bonus from above the garage is another 500 or thereabouts, so I think it's going to be 3950.
I can't scroll in to see it. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, well, on one of your drawings, I thought I saw 4584,
No, ma'am, it's under 4,000.
under 4. Thank you.
I would be prepared to make a motion if there's no further.
Okay, are we through with the discussion? Let's see, have I asked the public to be heard? Yes, I have done that, okay. All right, if there's no further discussion, I understand we may have a motion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2021-00203, and find that the proposed major work at 220 Seville Row is consistent with historic district standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
Second.
Now, we had a change, did we not, in the fire pit?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Fire
that,
pit's brick, not block.
To be brick, and that would be a condition of the motion, correct? And
Yes, they substituted the material, so.
Okay,
since they substituted, that amends the application. I think we
amended
ought to have it.
as amended by the applicant.
Okay. All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commission. Richard?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes? Ann?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, our next and last case this afternoon is COA 2021-00205 involving 315 Notting Hill Gate, a neighbor of the case that we have just heard. Is the applicant present?
He's not in his mic.
He had so much fun last time, he's coming back.
Would you both stand by the upright microphone and state your names and spell your last name for the record? Both raise your right hands. You swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please come forward and take a seat. Alexandria, will you present the case, please?
So in the case of 315 Notting Hill Gate, it's a single-family residential dwelling that was proposed as new construction previously and is back before us for some amended changes to be made. Going to read through this list. The bullet points are the changes that are being requested by the applicant. Changing the previously approved whitewashed brick to painted brick, rear lower level window adjusted from 78 to 72 inches in height, door on the side elevation changed from glass pane to solid, screened-in porch removed from the overhead elevation. If you all recall, this was something that was some issues with the wrong version, so we now have a corrected version. No porch was intended or approved at the last meeting, so just want to go ahead and call that out, but it is being submitted correctly now for the record with these proposed changes that are before us. The transoms removed from 2 front windows closest to the front door and from left elevation top right window. The soldier row surrounding front door modified. The spa fire pit reoriented deeper into the yard. Rear fence added. Driveway narrowed and realigned. Walkway from the front of the house was realigned. Paving was removed on the side door to the drive, and this was to help with the impervious, as well as there was an impervious pad removed from the parking area. These are the standards that you can see that it apply when it comes to new construction. We've got some of the general standards, the windows and doors, accessory features and structures, building material, fences and walls. This map shows you the surrounding property owners who were notified of the public hearing. And I'm going to go ahead and break down all these changes that were bullet pointed. I'm going to show you through the next couple of slides. So in summary, the landscape changes that are being proposed, you'll see that the spa and fire pit have been reoriented deeper into the yard. There has been a rear fence added. I'll show you the highlight of that in a later slide. The driveway's been narrowed and realigned. The intent of this was to help with the impervious surface ratios percentages to kind of bring that down. So they were able to realign that driveway in order to meet the intent, and as well as removing some of the walkway and the paving. All right, so previously what was approved is on the top. You can see that the windows had a little bit more detail, and now we're able to utilize what's being proposed and modified are the ones in the lower windows, as well as what's on the side of the door there. And then again on the side of the left side of the house. So the top is what was previously approved, and the bottom are the proposed modifications. And the true difference is going to be, you can see here, the top window, we have this extra level of detail in the window. The bottom level, it's been simplified, but we still do have the brick detail above. And this is what the front elevation would then look like. The top is what was previously approved. Again, windows, we're looking at the size of those and then the proposed modification. So we were 2/3, and now we're 2/2. So the rear elevation after the proposed changes would look like this. On the side by the entry door here, you can see the previously approved and then the proposed modification. The proposed modification is a solid door. And that right elevation in full with that proposed modification, you can see here in this image. These are the pads that were previously approved and then also the correction. The screened in porch removed from the overhead elevation and then resubmitting for the purposes of just correcting that record. So that's what this is showing you is there was some miscommunication previously, likely my fault, and the correction here in the lower portion. So that way moving forward throughout the plans, you'll know that that has been corrected. The location and moving those exterior features, that fire pit, it was previously approved closer to the home, and now we're pushing that a little further out so we can add some landscaping in. And then this shows you where that rear fence has been proposed. The driveway narrowing, this is just another angle for you to see from an aerial perspective of some of those changes of what was previously approved and then what the modifications are including. So you can see how the walkway's been realigned, driveway realigned, and some of that's narrowed and removed. These are the requested changes in the previously submitted material list. So we've got previously submitted was the aluminum clad. We're looking at vinyl clad. Again, white was previously approved as white. Front door, we're looking at a fiberglass painted slate blue, and I'll show you pictures of that in just a moment. Roof was previously approved as black, we're wanting to go with gray. Front porch pavers, tan taupe, we're looking at gray. Patio, same thing. So we're just getting some consistent color changes here. All right, so starting on the left side of the screen, you'll see these door changes and what those are going to look like. The solid fiberglass door, and then the front arch doors with that slate blue, which is kind of middle of the screen you can see. It'll be that color, not that image. Just note that it's the color only. As well as you see this picture of the home, note that that's for color purposes only. They're not proposing the home to look like that. And then to the far right, you'll see those pavers that they're in reference to and the coloration of that. At this time, staff would like to submit the following for record: the staff report, presentation, application, applicant materials, photos, site plan, and finding of fact.
Without objection, the cited materials will be admitted into the record. Questions for staff?
Are there trees to be removed? Speaking of trees. Additional trees on this go-around?
I can answer that. We actually, all that was approved at the last meeting.
Okay.
So we actually had a grading permit, so we've already cleared the property. So
Oh.
we're just resubmitting
I thought this
cosmetic changes.
I thought this new request indicated something about trees.
No additional trees are being removed, but make sure you speak in the mic. I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Would the applicants like to add anything to support their application?
Well, welcome back.
We need some information about the fence. Talk into the microphone.
I'm sorry, we were told that as long as we submitted for a fence in that space, that we did not need to land the actual material that the fence was made out of. It's going to be a wood fence. I don't have an exact, I mean, that's what, who told you that at the?
So our building permit is going to exclude the fence for now. We're going to get a fence permit during the build because the fence has not been decided. We think we know what we want it to look like, but we're not 100% sure if we can build that type of fence. It's a wood fence, but it's not a shadow box. It's much nicer than that. So I don't know if we have to come back to do another one of these for a fence.
We can't approve a fence if you don't show us what you're planning to build. And you don't know now. So
you need a specific image, or are there, because our issue was, we sent an image to the village, I think to Kim. I'm not sure if we sent it to Alexandria or not, but I sent it to Kim. My question was, if it's not listed on the building application, can we build that fence or not? So there are several fences listed, but are we limited to those fences?
as far as the Historic Preservation Commission is concerned, you are limited to what you presented to us today, and you haven't presented a fence design, so we can't approve a fence design. We have no objection to your locating the fence where you want to locate it, but that's not our purview. We're not, we're not doing planning or
Okay,
zoning
that's
or
fine.
anything. We just do aesthetics.
That's fine.
So you'd have to come back when you've decided on the design of the fence. Sorry.
Like hanging out with you guys. Keep coming back.
Any other questions for the applicants?
Again, going back to the fence too, and just has a little bit to do with, it is the whole green line?
Yeah, so what we want to do, there's actually bamboo at the back of the property that our neighbor, who is directly behind us, has asked that we keep some up. So what we're doing is leaving about 10, 15 feet of bamboo, then clearing a strip that we can actually maintain, and then the fence itself we're going to put on our setback line. So there's going to be like a fence, bamboo shielding our neighbor.
But it shows as a green line on the drawing, is that correct?
I think when I did that draft, it was a red line. I'm not totally sure what you guys are looking at. There's a silt
Looking at
fence that was
Exhibit
approved for.
A29. We'll put it up. A-2.9. It appears to be down
So
on
basically,
two sides of the house.
no,
And
that might be the silt fence that was there for construction.
Yeah, I'm just,
What we put on this application goes from the back of the house on either side, around the sides of the property, and then on that setback line at the,
trying to figure out what I'm looking at. That's,
If you're not approving the fence, I think it's moot.
Good point.
there.
Clarify what you see on the screen.
and what it is you're trying to do.
To clarify what you see on the screen, the green is the silt fence, the black where you see in the far, you can kind of see it in the far
Future
bottom corner where it says future fence, that black line is the proposed fence line.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you. It's not the green line.
I was actually really
Minor
confused when the
work?
architect sent that into. I was like, that's not what I want my
If it's an
fence.
approved style, and
It'll be minor work though, right?
if it's an
Probably,
approved
okay.
style, minor work, you don't have to come back. If it's
Don't
something
have to come
else,
before us.
as Eric said, you're gonna have to show us if it's not an approved fence style, and you wanted to prove, you're gonna have to show us what it
Okay,
looks like.
so that actually answered my question. So if we want to do something off that list, we would have to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question about the fire pit slash spa. On our site plans, there are two site plans, one that shows previously approved, one says proposed modifications. Unfortunately, they're at different scales. And the shape of the paver area has changed. Is the spa itself, the piece above the paver, has it changed at all, or is it the same as it was?
It's, I mean, we're still planning on the same style of spa that we've been planning on from the beginning. Our designer, when he did it, I think he was just kind of at the end, he's like, I'm just going to give you guys this amount of impervious in the backyard, and you can work it out later. Not appreciating at the time that we were going to need to present to you guys in this level of detail. So we actually took it from kind of a giant chunk of impervious to be what it was actually intended to be.
Do you have any drawings of the spa part?
I don't have it. Want me to email it to you? Or what's the best way to do this?
Or you can come back when you do the fence.
I mean, or you can pass my laptop around if that's easier. Okay. So who am I emailing this to? It's obviously not exact. This is not exact as it's got more impervious around it than this would, but it gives you the general sense. I spelled your last name right, the last name on that, right? Not totally sure. That's. Looks like it did. I think these things just take a while.
Can I ask you a quick question to the applicant? If I'm reading your plans correctly, it looks like the orientation has changed, but not the dimensions, for that spa?
Oh, for the spa.
Yeah, that's correct. I think we sent a picture, the picture that I just sent you, if I
Yeah.
spelled your name right, to the designer, and he was kind of like, and he's like, you want a fire pit too? Great, here's a chunk of impervious that we're going to count into the plans. And then we were trying to get everything in, and I was like, I knew that wasn't where we wanted it at the time, but we didn't appreciate that you guys would want to know this level of precision at the time, so we just kind of sent it through like that, but nothing really.
But now what you've sent will give us some understanding what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah.
Okay.
Same one. Yeah, I don't have my email connected in here, I'm sorry.
You're bouncing me as spam, so. There's that. I don't know if that was the one.
Yeah, I get blocked all the time on the emails I send to the village. Almost
I
every.
just unmarked the one I sent to Alex. I don't know, but this,
That's
I
what
got
happened to
I
your-
got a bounce back.
Your
from it.
fence design?
What?
Your fence design picture got bounced back?
Did
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just pull it up.
What did we used to do before all this technology?
Drawing in 3D. Mm-mm. Mm-hmm. Too small. I have fat fingers.
All right, almost to December.
You can just drag and drop it in. Right there. Oh, wait, you're filing it. Cool. Right there's fine.
Success.
All right. So obviously there wouldn't
Make it a little bigger, we'll be in good shape.
be that much or that level of tile around it, but it's the idea of having a water feature that goes into a rectangular, like slightly larger than your average hot tub, but not quite a pool. We were trying to kill two birds with one stone, because my husband really likes a water feature in the backyard, and I wanted a hot tub, so.
I'd like to make a motion.
Are there any, you're premature.
Oh, big pardon.
You haven't heard from the public yet. Do you have anything further to add in support of your application? Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Is there any member of the public who would like to present evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. Yes, sir. You've already been sworn in.
Yeah.
So, as the owner of Lot 16, and looking and have Lot 14, had the opportunity to get to know them over the last couple of years, and I think they're terrific and fantastic human beings. More importantly, well, perhaps not more importantly, but as a future neighbor, I think that this house is elegant, it's beautiful, and we look forward to being neighbors. I think that it fits in extremely well with the rest of the homes that have been proposed. As everybody's aware, that community, living close, is being developed very quickly. So again, we look forward to the fact that not only as neighbors, that similar to us, the Red family, but we have kids, and we look forward to the opportunity to share backyards and walk back and forth. And I think this is congratulations.
Especially to their spa before yours is built.
Yeah.
Does any of the commissioners have a question for the public witness? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony. That concludes the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Discussion, motions?
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA-2021-00205, and find the proposed major work at 315 Notting Hill Gate is consistent with the Historic District standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact, period.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lertz. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Richard?
Yay.
Tom?
Yay.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
After all that whitewash talk last time, though.
Oh, my God, and after all that, we couldn't find someone
I know.
who could do it. Like,
I was like, they're painting and, okay.
Yeah, that was it. We tried really hard, though, but
Yeah.
it just didn't happen.
Luck.
Thank you.
We hope not to see you again too soon. We hope that for
Take
you.
offense, that's easy.
And that's nothing personal, it's just probably we all are. You're tired of seeing us more than that.
That concludes the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and
So
return to
moved.
the regular commission
Second.
meeting? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes, and we are now in the regular meeting. This is a public meeting, and you are all welcome to stay and observe, but only members of the commission and its staff may speak. I've seen the list of minor work and staff approvals. It's been circulated. Is there any other business to come before us? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Meeting is adjourned until our next regular meeting in January, unless something earlier is scheduled.